Hi there, welcome to Tap Brass, and for this episode, we're talking to the Managing Director of White & Case Global Operations Center in Manila, Mr. Carlo Mata. Welcome to the show, Carlo. Hey, how long have you been doing this job?
With White & Case, going on my 5th year.
And this is your first leadership job, and just tell us how you eventually ended up being the Managing Director. What was your career path like?
Well, definitely not my first leadership job.
Okay.
I think, leading up to this, it's always been a capacity of leadership one way or another, and really just going through the whole process of learning and growing as a leader before finding myself here in 2015. My background, I started out in the financial services industry before I entered the BPO world, and then made my way to the shared service world, working for White & Case.
And how long have you been with White & Case?
5 years, almost 5 years.
Can you just briefly tell us what White & Case is, and what does the Global Operations Center in Manila do?
Sure. White & Case is a global law firm founded in 1901, based in New York. It has 44 offices servicing clients across 160 different countries. And the Manila office is just one of the 2 non-practicing offices. So the Manila office services the rest of the 44 offices of White & Case. So we are internal, and our client are all the 44 offices of White & Case.
Wow, that's probably a daunting job.
It is.
What is the demand for your office in general? You work 24 hours a day, and what different functions do you normally do for all these offices globally?
Right. So we run a number of different functions to support the firm, to make sure that the firm operates smoothly and at peak. So we run 24/7. We do all things from helping recruitment functions to training, tracking the courses of the different lawyers and partners, to finance, helping in the billing, and knowledge management, business development and marketing, market research for the firm, for the lawyers to prepare for their pitches for clients, even technology support. So we're there as simple as you need help printing a document all the way in Paris, we're there to help.
So technically it's a law firm, but you are doing the back end or the support.
That's right. You got that right.
Okay. And what are the current challenges that you're facing in your leadership with these operations that you have in Manila?
Well, I think, among different things, I think it's just making sure that as we continue to grow, recently we've added a new generation to our working class. Gone are the days where millennials are the youngest. Now we have Gen Zs in our workforce, believe it or not. And so just sometimes bridging the differences between the different generations in and of itself is a challenge. It is a fun challenge to overcome, but it is a challenge nevertheless that every leader has to overcome.
So the Manila office is a big group. You have around how many employees?
We have close to 550 employees now.
And is all generations represented?
All generations represented.
Including baby boomers?
Including baby boomers.
So you have baby boomers, you have Gen Xers like me, and you have millennials like you.
Yes.
And majority, I suppose, are millennials.
Majority are millennials.
And you just mentioned that last year, the youngest, the Gen Z just entered
we have about
the workforce.
Close to 10% now of our workforce being Gen Z.
So you are technically a very diverse workplace with all the generations represented.
That's right.
How do you manage that?
I don't know, because it's something that, didn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen just one day we woke up and all generations all of a sudden were in one place. Fortunately for us, it happened quite organically. And so it gives us time to sort of mature into this whole thing, to grow on one another, I guess. And it's a process. It's a learning process for us. And I think something that we're excelling in, we're doing very well in.
So what are the common difficulties working in a multi-generational office?
I would say this. I think the manner in which communication happens sometimes, or the expectations, could vary widely. And you work in organizations. I would say even the attention span is very different. So coming out with ways and means to communicate to the entire population. The older generation, they're perfectly okay with long emails, right? The younger generation, now we're tapping into social media, where we have to come out with content that is about 60 seconds to 120 seconds to get their attention, and then use that to lead it, to channel their attention to a deeper forum. But it's just being aware that the landscape is shifting, it's changing. Keeping that in mind so that we're able to be effective across the entire workforce.
And what do you think is the main strategy that allows you to be successful in communicating across these generations?
I think the biggest thing that works for us is a timeless principle called respect. It becomes the basis of all successful interactions. Even if you look at people within the same generation, even people within the same generation have a different way of communicating with one another, different expectations. And when you have respect as the basis for everything, it allows you to lead with an open ear and an open heart. I think that's very important, because when you do that, then you believe the best in the people. And so even when there is an initial misunderstanding where you don't see things, you're not on the same page with things, when there is respect and that precedes all your interactions and it safeguards your interactions, then there is a process of clarifying and talking to one another and getting a better understanding of what both parties mean.
I like what you're saying. So it's respect. In a way, you're also saying about empathy, listening, with your heart, with your ear. Because diversity is not just different generations, it's cultural in so many ways, right? So how do you think your office or your workplace is diverse in other ways?
Oh my goodness. I think, first of all, when you understand White & Case as a whole, where we span the entire globe in terms of our practice, we are present in, like I was saying, we service clients across 160 different countries. And so the only way you can be successful in that is if you know how to work across diverse understandings, diverse practices, diverse industries, diverse beliefs, diverse ways of communication. And that same DNA is obviously present even in the Manila office. So our ability to think global, to be inclusive in the way we think, and to be aware of even our unconscious biases that we may have had coming into the organization, so that we understand how to pinpoint our differences and to actually capitalize on those differences instead of trying to move away from each other's differences and silence those differences. It's actually to celebrate those differences, bring it into the light, and learn to capitalize on those differences.
I love what you're saying, celebrate the differences.
Yes, absolutely.
How different are we? Like in the office, what are the differences that you've noticed?
Oh, there are differences in, I think, in even generational, the generation we talked about. And then there are also cultural differences. We also have differences even in political belief. Nowadays, nowadays I think just a scan of social media, you're going to see. I don't think we've had so much sort of diversity, and I would even say, non-tolerance towards diversity in terms of politics on social media, right? So here, we have the same differences in political belief, religious beliefs, practices, even sexual preferences, and the differences cut across almost everything. So everything's present here.
So I'm hearing tolerance, I'm hearing respect, I'm hearing empathy, and those are good cultural intelligence, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that term before, but it's like a practice that you want to instill in your employees. Is that something that you get your people to be trained at, educated in? Is that a program within White & Case?
Yeah, I think some things are taught, some things are caught, right?
Okay, good.
And so we try to do both things. While we try to train people on the diversity mindset and having a global mindset, so that you have a global mindset with a local flavor. And at the end of the day, what people pick up more than anything that is talked about in a classroom, it's really the culture and the vibe and the energy. And so one of the ways that we do that is we bring in stakeholders, people that we work with from the different offices from all over the world. They would come to Manila, and for us in Manila, we get to see and witness firsthand the different cultures, people from New York, people from Paris, people from Germany, people from Sydney, people from all across the different offices, Singapore, Hong Kong, and all that. And we just come together, and there's an eagerness to welcome the diversity. It's almost like it's an exploration and a discovery of the differences. So I think one way that we do it is we create a premium on our diversity. We create a premium on our differences.
Can you expound on that? What do you mean by premium on your diversity?
When you put a premium on something, that means it has high value,
Okay.
right? And so when you put a premium on diversity, that means you learn to look at your differences, and differences in everything, cultural background, ethnic background, the countries you come from. You look at that diversity, you look at that difference, and not only do you accept it, but you actually value it. You put value in that diversity, and that's what I mean by putting a premium on diversity.
And then, for example, in White & Case, how do you practice or how do you express that value? Other than just communicating it, is there any tangible expression of you value diversity and you value the differences in people?
I think the biggest expression of our diversity is when you just look at the people that make up the firm, that make up the law firm of White & Case. You look at the lineup, and oftentimes we would have retreats, departmental retreats, global retreats, but here in Manila. And you would have about 50 different people from Asia, from Hong Kong, from Tokyo, from Singapore, from Malaysia. Then you would have people from Sydney and Melbourne, and then you would have people from Manila, people from Germany, Paris, New York. And when you come together, you look at it and you feel that it is a truly, truly global organization. I think that is the biggest expression of diversity for us. We see it.
Okay, the unity, the harmony, the common denominator.
Yes.
So it's evident.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And that's culture, right? So
it is.
You get to develop that kind of culture that is diversified, that's global.
Yeah.
You think that's the main reason why, you've been your company, at least the Manila office, as far as I know, has been awarded so many times in areas of people management, HR, and ideal workplace to an ideal employer.
Right.
Do you think that's a key variable or secret to the success?
Absolutely. I think when people come with diversity in mind and inclusion in mind. When you learn to welcome ideas and ways and cultures that are not necessarily your own, it absolutely enriches you. It grows you as a professional, it grows you as a person. And when people come to work for this organization, you're immediately enriched because of the diversity that is just present in thought, in ideas, everything. Even when you come to a board meeting of the senior management team, I love the exchanges of ideas, the different approaches. One sees it this way, the other sees it totally opposite, and they come together in one place to try to piece together a better picture, a more complete picture, and that cascades, that reverberates across the entire organization. And so when people come, they enjoy working for a truly global organization.
I love what you're saying. I mean, there's so much wisdom there when you say that when you value diversity and there's inclusion, it enriches you and you grow.
Yes.
Because, I mean, when we travel, we get to be enriched and we get to grow. I mean, we automatically, all travelers know that. But you guys have the advantage of being a global firm or a global organization. What advice would you give to local corporations or organizations in the country? How can they look at diversity and inclusion as giving it premium and practicing it in the local context?
You know, I think one thing is to have a conversation around it. I think it starts with having a conversation around it. And sometimes when you do sort of an internal search as an organization, or even as a leadership team, or as a leader, as an individual, you learn to understand, do you possess your own unconscious biases? And for me, I would say that, I guess organizations, number one, talk about it. Number two, it learns to appreciate and to open up to various backgrounds and various individuals and skill sets. Oftentimes, what you need is not a new vision. Sometimes what you need is a fresh perspective. And that does not necessarily have to come from the top. I think that comes from at all levels of the organization coming together.
So it's listening to your people.
It is.
And once you have that conversation, to be open and to be willing to have a different lens, to wear a different set of lens and have a different perspective. And diversity and inclusion follows.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's very clear as opposed to a top-down mentality type of leadership. Culture has to be contributory in a way, right? It's coming from different parts of the organization.
And look, I think gone are the days where, we have a sort of an armchair general dictating to everyone, and everyone just follows like, aimless or soldiers that have no opinion of their own. I think one of the things that we need to understand is, remember what Steve Jobs said? He said, it's foolish to hire smart people, but then sort of not give them the freedom to express that intellect. And, I'm paraphrasing, by the way.
It's okay.
But, for us, when we talk about diversity, it's also the diversity of gifts and talents and experiences that people bring to the table. And earlier I talked about respect. It's also understanding that your experience isn't the absolute truth in everything. Meaning, two people can have totally different experiences, and they enrich each other when they bring those experiences together and learn from each other instead of using that experience to preach to the other person.
You've been in the firm for quite some time, and I'm sure you have lots of experiences. And we Filipinos are are quite, spontaneous about how we respond
Yeah.
with other people's differences,
Yeah.
other culture.
Yeah.
Do you have any experiences in the office that way or in the firm?
I do. Sometimes those differences show up in the funniest things, right? So one difference is the way we Filipinos say hi, or because we come from different nationalities. Filipinos tend to beso, right? So
Yeah.
we have if obviously if it's not a formal handshake, if you know someone for some time, the way you say hi is a beso, right? And so sometimes you forget that in some countries we Filipinos do the one beso, right? Sa kanila it's 1, 2, right?
Multiple besos. Okay.
And then I know someone from London said hi, and she was expecting 1, 2, and it became 1, 2, 3. And sometimes it's that little awkward. Oh, do we do a 1 or is it a 1, 2, 3? And so the way I do it now is when I welcome them, I say, okay, you're in the Philippines, we do a 1 beso.
There's an orientation.
Yes, there's a on-the-spot orientation.
Yeah, otherwise you have to draw the line. It's going to be harassment
Right.
now.
That's right.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of things that was being talked about diversity. In the Philippines, it's really quite new as a topic. How are you embracing it? You think the Filipino employees? How do you think they're embracing it? Are they welcoming it?
I think we have a long ways to go. I think as a country we have a long ways to go in terms of being inclusive. That said, I think we've gone a long ways as well. I think we've made a whole lot of progress in terms of being more open and being more inclusive of differences. I think that's also something that social media brings to us, right? I mean, when you're open to social media, you see various different beliefs and expressions of different things from all over the world, not just from your local barangay, right? And so I think that in and of itself opens us up to differences in terms of approach, belief, and mannerisms. But that said, I think the world in general, not just Filipinos, but the world in general, and I should speak even just for the Filipinos, I think much more room for opening up even further.
At least the growth is there.
Oh yeah,
it's happening.
I think we're headed the right direction. We're headed towards the right direction.
Let me go personal now, Carlo. I've
Sure.
known you for almost half a decade, and
Yeah.
I've seen you grow as a leader, and I'm just amazed on how much you've grown, which is probably a testament to what you've been saying a while ago, that if you embrace diversity and inclusion, you get to be enriched and you get to grow. How are you as the man, as Carlo? I mean, I know that your father is a preacher, for example,
Yeah.
and you actually follow after him in so many ways. Good looks and good speaking abilities. So how do you respond to, what's your take on diversity and inclusion separate from the organization White and Case?
While I try to separate it as an organization, I think there are many overlaps, first and foremost. And I think that's a good thing, because you tend to be most successful where your personal beliefs and the organization that you work with come together. But as an individual, I think it's exactly the same for me still. I would say that I love engaging in conversations with people that don't necessarily represent my own line of thinking. I don't always agree with them, but I find it very enriching when individuals with varying beliefs can come together with respect as the basis to try to understand one another. So when you engage in a dialogue, it's not to prove a point, but it's to learn the perspective of another person. And if you're able to, like my conversations with you, if you've gone through years and years of experience, building up experience, so long as I'm dominating the talk and I'm saying what I want to say, I'm not learning anything new. I'm not growing as a person, as an individual. So when you come together with individuals less talk, learn more, listen more. I think that's how you grow. And as an individual, I think that would probably describe my belief, my approach towards diversity.
Good answer. I love it. I love the fact that you're saying that you also want as a person to be respected, and you also want to be engaged and to be heard and to be listened to.
Yeah.
And hence, you give what you want to get. So if that's something that you want to get from the community or the people that you belong to,
You give it
you
first.
give it first.
Right.
Exactly. Wonderful. How lovely it is to be having similarities, and we discuss similarities. But unfortunately, we all have differences, right?
Yeah.
And our differences really defined us.
Absolutely.
And how do you look at people and their differences, other than the learning that you get from that diversity or that difference?
I think it's our differences. You said it wonderfully, right? It's our differences that define us. It's our differences that set us apart from each other. I'm a father of 3, and earlier last week I had a conversation with my eldest. She's almost a teenager. She's 12 years old. And she wrote a nice note to myself and my wife about how she expresses appreciation towards me and to her mom. And she sort of felt a little bad and apologetic because she didn't do it the way her younger sister did it. And I told her this, and I'll say it because I think it's a principle that applies to all. I said, you and your sisters are uniquely and beautifully different. And it is in that unique identity and the little differences between the 3 of you that when I look at all 3 of you, I see I'm filled with joy just seeing the diversity amongst the 3 of them. I think when you learn to look at differences and appreciate it, just look at it and say, oh wow, this daughter is different from this son, and not compare. I think expectations are very critical, right? We cannot expect people to be the same. I think we need to learn to expect people to be different. And that when they start to show their differences, you look at it and say, that's it. That's what makes you a unique and a beautiful individual.
Hey, beautifully said. Wonderful words, not just from a corporate leader, but also a father and a person of the world. Any final words you'd like to share or advice that you want to give to our corporate leaders about diversity and inclusion?
Sure. Differences are what make us unique. Differences are what make individuals unique. And differences will always be there. And I think when you learn to put a premium on differences, and by premium I mean you learn to appreciate and value with high regard the differences across opinions, differences across different individuals, beliefs and experience. When you learn to appreciate everyone's differences and you learn to bring it together to learn from each other, then it enriches. The differences don't tear us down. The differences build us up as individuals, as teams, as organizations, as a nation. Our differences are what make us strong. And so we make sure that we learn to appreciate it, we bring it all together, and it helps us become better people.
Well, thank you, Carlo, for sharing your thoughts and some of your best practices here in the White & Case. You're definitely leading a generation following your example of just appreciating people for their differences. Well, there you have it, folks. Just another conversation with the top brass. Well, we all have our differences, and you know what they say, we don't look at differences with arms and violence. We want to look at differences with intellect and decent purpose. You just witnessed a conversation with a top brass.